Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm 𝗤𝗏𝗄𝗏. With me as always is Mark Ainley. We have a Straight Up Tuesday tip for you with returning guest Eric Workman. Eric, welcome back to the show. How are we doing today?
Doing great, fellas. Thanks for having me back on. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. Hey, so we had a question come in a few weeks back and figured you'd be the guy to answer here. So we had a listener email us talking about preparing for their appraisal. How can they best maximize the value? What steps can they take to make sure that they hit the number they want on their appraisal?
Fantastic question, and something that we obviously deal with every day. Every loan requires an appraisal, and there's most of the way that we build our loans are built around what we anticipate the appraisal coming back at. So something that I always coach my clients on, and some need a little more coaching than others, is how to properly prepare for an appraisal. And I went ahead, knowing that this was going to be what we talked about today, went ahead and put together a little top 5 rules for optimizing your appraisals. And what do you want me to start? We start with number 1 or number 5?
Go with 5. You got to count down.
Yeah, count down.
Okay, so we're going to count backwards. All right. So rule number 5 is especially pertinent whenever you're dealing with rental properties and you're refinancing or looking at purchasing rentals. Number 1 is you have to remember that your tenants are human and treat them with what the words I wrote down: grace, respect, humility, gratitude, and build the appraisal around their schedule. I've seen it 100 times. When the investor treats their tenant properly and they bring them into the process of, hey, I've got an appraisal going on. It's really important to me. What works for you? When is a good time for us to be there? When they treat the tenants well, the appraisal goes well. You walk through with the appraiser. The tenant says great things about their home. They love their house. They love the property owner, et cetera. And it ends up having a very positive impact on the outcome of the appraisal. When you treat a tenant terribly, more often than not, you're going to have the appraiser go back more than once because the tenant's just not going to show up. They're not going to be there. They're not going to let them in. Who are you? Nobody told me. No, you can't come in. All of those types of things, right? And then if you treat them really bad, or if you force your way in, which I've also seen this be the case, where you have clients who are like, no, that's my house. I'll post a note on the door and I'll be in there in 24 hours. Well, that's when you typically have the tenants who say things like, this place sucks. They don't fix anything. Everything's broken around here. And I'm withholding my rent until X, Y, and Z gets done. Okay. So if you're in that situation and that's what the appraiser hears, what is that appraiser going to do when it comes to the expense ratios on that property? They're going to increase the CapEx reserve that they put for it. They're going to increase the bad debt figure. They're going to increase the vacancy figure. And all of that pushes your NOI down and pushes your value down. So it's a very simple thing. You think it's kind of the golden rule, right? Treat unto others as you would have done to yourself. But when it comes to tenants, sometimes investors can get holier than thou, that it's their property. When you treat a tenant like it's their home and you build that appraisal around their schedule, good things happen to you. I've seen too many examples of both to think otherwise. So that's number 5. Treat your tenants with ultimate respect and gratitude, and it'll have a great impact on the number.
Couldn't agree more, right? Like they have so much power. Appraisers are human, right? They will be influenced or dictated by their surroundings just like the rest of us. They're not machines.
That's interesting you say that, because rule number 4 is that you have to remember that appraisers are humans and thus they are impressionable. There's a lot of different valuation services that are out there these days. You can get desktop appraisals and BPOs and those types of things. And in a case where you have a bad property, where it takes the appraiser going in to see what's wrong with it versus just measuring square footage and bedroom count, it's going to hurt you, right? But in the case where you have a nice property, and again, you've either treated your tenants well or you've improved it nicely, you've updated plumbing, you've updated different mechanicals, the hard surfaces or the appliances or what have you are better. In cases where you've done good things to the property, having an actual human being in there is going to really help you. But there's one of the things that I shared some photos with you guys, and I'd love for you to go ahead and pull them up, because this is really where the human element, I think, factors into how you end up getting your numbers back. So the first one that we're seeing here, for all of the viewers on YouTube, you're able to see this. For all the listeners out there, just imagine the grossest exploded toilet that you can conjure up in your mind. And that's what's on the screen here. So we had an appraisal done about 90 days ago, where when the appraiser walked through, this was the condition of the bathroom. And you don't have a hard time guessing that this property didn't come back. The number didn't come back where the owners thought that it was going to. And imagine that, right? I mean, come on. So you have a human being walking into a property where this is how it's kept, and clearly there's plumbing issues and all these other types of things that haven't been addressed. There's no way you're going to get the number that you want whenever a human being walks into conditions like this.
That is nasty. For our listeners, this picture of someone just going diarrhea all over the seat, all over the toilet, all within 2 feet of the toilet, and then it's sitting there for 3 weeks. Like, that's the picture. Like, that's gross.
Yeah. And go ahead and scroll down, and we're gonna go through another one here too. So this is a picture, and it's kind of hard to make out, but this is a basement with a bunch of stuff in it, right? You can tell the tenants use it for storage and whatnot. And there's 2.5 inches of water in this basement. Now, the actual quote out of the appraisal says, at the time of inspection, the subject's basement was filled with 2 to 4 inches of water. The subject's sump pump does not appear to work. This condition has an adverse effect on the subject's marketability and has been considered in the valuation. I mean, of course it is. Why wouldn't it be, right? What buyer, because what is an appraisal whenever we get down to it? An appraisal is supposed to be an informed, data-driven opinion on what a reasonable buyer and a reasonable seller would pay for, would accept as far as compensation for that particular asset. Well, there aren't any reasonable buyers out there that don't discount a property that's got standing water in it. So of course it's going to have an impact on your value. Now, I'm going to move on to 3 here, because the number 3 rule is pre-walk the property. And both of the situations that we just saw that had a really negative impact on the value of the property, both of those things could have been avoided if you, as the investor, would have taken the time to walk the property before the inspection. It's one of those things where it's like you hear, if you're watching legal shows or movies or whatever, and it's like, well, if you're an attorney, you never ask a question that you don't already know the answer to. Never walk an appraiser through a property that you don't know how it looks. You look bad, the tenant looks bad, the property looks bad, and you just start yourself up on this uphill climb to get to a number that you want to get to that it's very difficult to achieve. I just had a client, we're refinancing 14 properties for him. It's an $8 million loan. And the 14th property, he and I talked about this. I told him, go drive every property, take your property manager with you, walk into all the common areas, walk into all the basements, look at all the mechanical rooms, walk all the parking lots, just make sure that the properties are all in the condition that they should be. And we had to delay an appraisal because one of them wasn't. And he got his maintenance crew out there, and he got his landscapers out there, and he took the time, he took a week's worth of work to improve the way that the property presented itself. And of course, it had a really positive impact on the value that came back on that particular building. It's a very simple thing to do, especially when you're looking at 30-year loans, right? You're going to lock in a particular amount of debt at an interest rate for a long period of time. That's why you would get a 30-year mortgage, right? You plan on setting and forgetting this property. Like, take an hour to drive there, go through it, walk around it, and make sure that it presents itself properly so that you can maximize the value on what you're getting there.
I dig it. Keep rolling here. What else we got?
All right. Number two, I wrote down, do their job. or at least help yourself. And what I mean by that is pull comps, have your scope of work together for everything that you've either done or are doing on the property. Put together photo books of finishes of, this is like if you're doing a rehab project, right? Like show the appraiser what level of finish is going to be in the property and how you're going to make it look so that they accurately compare you to other properties in the neighborhood, right? If the appraiser, who again, we've already determined is human, if they have the wrong idea of how you're going to finish it off or what level of finishes you're going to put in there, they're going to comp it against different properties than they should. And again, it's a human element, right? But it's one of those things that you can overcome by showing them how you're going to finish it off. And then also, put together leases, put together rent rolls, bring copies of the survey if you have them. Just help yourself by helping them. Help me help you, right? Just put together all the information that you have on it that you can then give to the appraiser. And I get emails daily between appraisers and borrowers. And now we probably have some conventional lenders out there, or maybe some banks that they are clutching their pearls right now. Like, oh my goodness, how is that even possible? How can that be the case? How can they talk to each other? Well, listen, 99 times out of 100 in all cases, the appraisal contact is the property owner or the buyer, right? They're going to talk. They're going to meet each other, to see each other at these appraisals, and they're going to communicate. Let's just think about it and deal with it. And my most successful clients, short of putting the actual report together, they do a tremendous amount of work up front to help that appraiser and then ultimately help themselves get the value that they're looking for.
Yeah, I want to over-index on this point here. Like this is very, very important. Like think about it from this perspective. Let's say the three of us go and look at a 3-unit building and we were asked to come up with a value. We would come up, Mark thinks it's 6, you think it's 6.25, I'm 575. Like 3 people, if you got 10 appraisers out there, they're all going to have a different number, right? It all might be close, but everyone's going to come out a little different. When you do the upfront work, you not only show you're professional, but you anchor them on that number. It's now basically prove me wrong, right? Yeah. I'm saying it's 625. Like, and if you have good comps to show it's not great, like maybe I'm the one in the wrong, but you've just anchored to the number, and then they look at the comps and say, yep, absolutely. And exactly. They have in this market, they have a million things to do. Like, cool, this makes sense. I can sign off on this knowing damn well that this is a good number. Like this guy's not bloating it, and he just did half my work for me. Great. Right. Like, yeah. And then that's, getting 625 or 575 or whatever it is, like it's a big freaking deal. Yeah. The cash you would have left in there stops you.
Like you said, they could all, there's a range that lowest to best you can get. You control your destiny. You'll get that upper part of that range.
Yeah. And like, it's so crazy. We're talking like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and like just take a few hours. Like this is a big moment. Like don't just be like, all right, the appraisal's happening. Like be prepared.
Yeah. It's not for
let's think about it like this, right? This one sales training I went to pre-COVID, so this was almost 2 years ago now. They had us figure out what our hourly rate was. How much money do you make an hour, right? So if any of our listeners are out there are making more than $1,000 an hour, then they're making millions of dollars a year, right? Because you pretty much multiply everything by 2,000 hours worked in a year. So if you put 2 hours worth of work into pulling leases together, rent roll, survey, comp, scope, all that kind of stuff, you can, like Tom was saying, you can impact your value by tens of thousands of dollars, which then could impact your cash out by tens of thousands of dollars. It could impact your equity position and have you a lower LTV, which gets you a lower interest rate, which over the course of 30 years is going to save you tens of thousands of dollars. This is one of those moments in your life where a couple hours worth of work, you're paying yourself thousands of dollars an hour by putting this effort in.
Yeah, no brainer. And if you don't know how to do it, reach out to, if you don't feel confident about how you're pulling comps or so forth, or what you should present, reach out to someone who knows. Like people will help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, guys, the number one rule, and it seems like the most simple rule, but you'd be shocked how many times I run into this. The number one rule is be at the appraisal.
Yes.
Seems so simple, right? Be at the appraisal. 100% of the time, if an appraisal comes in low and the client calls me to complain, my first question is, how did the appraisal go? And when they say, I don't know, I wasn't there, the conversation ends. Conversation ends. I'll tell them this, hey, look, I don't know what you want me to do. If you want to pay for another appraisal, go ahead, spend your money. But if you don't show up on that one, I really have no idea what to tell you. If you couldn't be bothered to be there, then what are you complaining about? You just let this random person show up at a random property that they've never been at. You were too busy to appear. You didn't give them any of the data that could have supported your opinion. You just think that, oh, I think my house is worth $500,000. So this random person is going to show up at this random property with all their inherent biases and opinions and all these other types of things, and they're just going to come up with the exact same number. Come on. Yeah. Like, what are the odds of that? I want to share an email with you guys here. This is an email that again I mentioned earlier. I'm on multiple emails a day between appraisers and clients, and it says, "Hi, client. Would you happen to be able to share with me the itemized budget for the $165,000 in renovation costs for the cosmetic work, exterior improvements, and laundry equipment that we discussed at the inspection?" This appraisal came in $190,000 above what we were thinking it was going to come in at.
Yeah, have your ducks in a row.
Almost a $2.5 million building. I mean, it is that simple. It really is that simple. That's
great information, Eric. Eric,
yeah,
you always give all this great information. We'll do. I know I refer you all the time. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, the easiest way to get a hold of me is my email, eric@𝗦𝘃𝗲𝗀𝗵𝗁. I love getting texts, but I invariably will bury them, right? When you get 100 a day, you read one and think you're going to get back to it, and then you don't end up scrolling that far at the end of the day. Yeah. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is eric@𝗦𝘃𝗲𝗀𝗵𝗁. That's Eric with a C, ERIC@𝗦𝘃𝗲𝗀𝗁.
Awesome. Tom, you got a Chicago tip, right?
Oh, I got one for you. All right. So we're talking about how much we make hourly. So this ties in a little bit. So it's estimated that in 1927 alone, so just this year, Chicago bootlegger Al Capone made nearly how many millions of dollars selling illegal hooch? And multiple choice for you. And this is in 1927 dollars, not today dollars. 1 million, 5 million, 20 million, or 60 million.
Before you even gave the numbers, I was going to say 20 million from something I thought I heard in the past, but what is it?
Eric, do you want to guess too?
I'll shoot for the stars here. I'll say 60 million. I'll say he was buried money like Escobar was.
So 60 million it is. And now this was on Reddit, Mark. So it's definitely a trustworthy source.
Yeah.
And for those listening, 60 million in today's dollars is 940 million when you count for inflation. So basically made $1 billion in 1 year selling booze.
Gosh, that's sick. That's awesome.
So he doesn't need to be at the appraisal. He's got
no. He had a decent business going.
Yeah, his house just recently sold over there in Auburn Gresham, 71, I think South Prairie it was. So, but awesome, Tom, great show. Eric, I always love to have you back. Listeners, please leave us a review and please share us with a friend. I know you run with circles that are other real estate investors, friends, family. Share with us, spread the word so we can spread the nuggets that our guests are coming on here and sharing with everybody. So thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks all.